This is a movie about our efforts to climb Mount Humphreys, a peak just outside of Bishop, California here. It's 8 feet short of 14,000 feet in elevation. We've tried it twice. Back in 2009, we wanted to do the entire ridge along the side of it all the way up to the summit. That's shown by the yellow line there. We didn't quite make it and came down a gully and back to camp. Then this year, the pink line shows where we retraced our steps up to the top of the gully and to the summit of Mount Humphreys. One thing about Mount Humphreys is to get started, you have to drive in about 9 miles on a really rough dirt road. The first year we tried it, we only made it about 6 miles, 3 miles short of the end, so we had to hike those 3 miles. This year we only had to hike 1 mile. The other thing that we did different this year was that we lightened up our packs by about 5 pounds each. We brought less gear, plus we had lighter gear. And that made it a whole lot easier when we had to travel cross-country, which most of the hiking was. Both years we camped at a little lake at about 11,000 feet elevation, got there in a reasonable amount of time, and were able to relax until the next morning. And we had the same little cook area, nice flat rock to cook on, little one-burner stove, same stove. I usually just cook up a little rice dish with chicken, and that's a little windshield around the stove there. Both times we woke up bright and early in the morning, just before sunrise. This is a picture of this year. Archie's loading up the water for the packs. This year we didn't have any coffee. We ended up just having energy drinks and energy bars and got started. Back in '09, like I said, we did started out trying to do the entire ridge line, and this is a profile of that ridge line. We hiked up from camp off to the right and started going along the ridge line, most of which was fairly easy, just a little bit of scrambling. You had to go kind of work your way back and forth across the top of the ridge trying to find the easiest way. We did rope up after a while because the exposure got to be a bit too much. But we were simul-climbing, meaning we were both attached to the rope, both moving, but with a piece of pro or two between us. The climbing was easy, so we felt it was just fine, but it was exposed, so we really enjoyed having the rope. When we got to the point where we could see the rest of the mountain that we had to do to get to the top, we decided that maybe that just wasn't for us that year. So we rappelled down the side and picked up a little gully with some snow in it, slid down the gully and got down to the talus down below there and ended up and walked back to camp. The whole descent that year probably took a couple hours. Then this year we got up early, started retracing our steps from a few years back, and watched the sunrise on the cliffs. That white peak to the left there with the little frowny on it is called the Checkered Demon. Kind of an interesting feature. We sure had a lot of loose talus to hike. Overall, the approach took us 3 hours. We did the loose talus, plus we had a long, sandy scree gully we had to go up. You had to watch your steps so that you didn't kick anything down the scree gully. And also, so when you took a step, you didn't just slide back down again. When we got to the top of the gully, we were at about 13,000 feet, and we started our climb up to the summit of Mount Humphreys. Most of it was pretty nice scrambling. Didn't need a rope for the most part. That's the ridge line that we did back in 2009 behind Archie there. At one point we decided it was time to start roping up, so we got our gear organized, and Arch led some of the technical sections from that point on. After a while we were able to simul-climb, and that kept us moving a little bit faster. Then this is the final 100 feet or so up to the summit. At this point we're just under 14,000 feet, so the vertical climbing was a pretty good effort. But we made it to the summit and we were really happy. Arch stopped. I took a picture of him there. The yellow arrow is pointing to him. He got our gear organized for the descent and started eating some lunch. I was just really excited to get to the actual tippity top, so I went across, not too far, got to the very tippity top, and Arch took a picture of me while I took a picture of him. Then after eating some lunch, we decided it was time to start heading down, and we ended up doing a couple of rappels, which was where we were doing the technical climbing before. But for the most part, it wasn't too bad. Some of those sections were long, sandy patches even, where you could just kind of walk on down. And then we hit our scree gully, which ended up actually being kind of fun. We did what's called scree surfing, where you find yourself a really nice loose patch of sand, step down on it, and then you just kind of slide another extra couple feet. All in all, it took us about 3 hours to get down the scree and across the talus back to camp. Got back to camp, had dinner, and went to bed. Next morning we got up, and I was really anxious to have some coffee, so I started brewing coffee first thing in the morning, and we enjoyed watching the sunrise. Beautiful, clear morning, kind of cold, so we just hung around camp, tried to stay warm, drank coffee, and enjoyed watching the sun on the cliffs around us. At one point, a little long-tailed weasel came through camp, and he's about a foot tall there. I didn't take that picture. I got the picture off of the internet, but he looked just like that, and he was running all over camp. Anyway, after watching the weasel for a while, we had breakfast, packed up, and headed on back to the car. Drove back out, and we're really happy we made it to the top of Humphreys this year. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed our movie.